European investment climate and in general needs to believe that Europe can still make batteries, otherwise we have lost the game.
The collapse of Northvolt has sent the European battery industry soul searching. Some now argue that the gap with dominant Asian producers is too big to close. Yet others still believe Europe has what it takes to build its own battery champions. Serbian company 11 may well become one of them. After developing its own lithium iron phosphate chemistry, 11 is now ready to break ground on its first gigafactory in Subotica, Serbia. Its CEO, Nemanja Mikać, joins us today. Nemanja, 11 is part of this first cohort of European companies that are trying to gain a space, their niche in the battery industry. Do you still have a chance to rival dominant Asian and Chinese battery producers?
Of course we do, but we have to approach it very carefully and we have to analyze each step. And that's why we've took a different approach. So we do exist already for almost 6 years, and we have been in the business, but we have been scaling very, very steadily and slowly and learning along the way. So one of the key items for success is to go like a step-by-step route. What that means basically is to do a laboratory research for a couple of years, then to do a pilot line for a couple of years where your yields are perfected, where your material works, where you're testing your cells already by customers, and then you go to a relatively small gigafactory. It's usually 1 to 2 GWh, where you actually get all the scale-up hurdles gone, and then you scale to 10 or more. And these steps were somehow were not used in the right way, were kind of skipped in Northvolt case and in many other cases, because the need of batteries was very high, the availability of capital was very high, the capital was affordable, so people just went for it and built multiple tens of gigawatt-hour facilities without ever running a single one. And that turned out to be a detrimental step, which we now see in many examples. And I believe there will be more examples, unfortunately, of companies failing, but there will be a few who will make it to the finish line with this studious approach. But on top of all this, you still need Asian knowledge, experience, and you need to collaborate. You need to learn from supply chain. You need to learn from colleagues, from employees, from partners. And if you do this all rightfully and timely, and if you add that sort of technical component to priority list of your company, then you have a pretty high chance of success.
Most of the components that go into your LFP batteries come from China. China has now restricted the exports of such components. How much of an impediment is this going to be for 11 and others European battery producers?
Yeah, of course, the value chain is still Chinese for the most part, for us and for everybody using LFP cells. But it happened already with some grades of graphite before, and now it's happening to just a wider range of products. It's not a restriction, it's a monitoring of everything being used. So basically, everything has to go through a special procedure, and most of it gets approved unless it's some defense application or similar. So it's just a longer process, usually about 60 days longer process, and it still works, but of course it brings additional uncertainty to the climate of batteries. But there is no other way for any company in the next couple of years to slowly, gradually localize the value chain. There's no other way than to work with the Chinese. So I don't think the trade will stop. It will just be slightly more administratively complicated, but essentially it will just move on as it is today.
Is it realistic for Europe to aim for an independent battery value chain?
It will be a very gradual process. It will take probably another 10 years until we see a full localization. And the most critical processes will be done eventually in Europe. And even Chinese suppliers are coming now to Europe, battery suppliers or producers, firstly, but then later they will bring their value chain locally so they can have a more resilient operational production. So we will see that trend, but firstly, we have to have stable battery production, and that running for a couple of years for the supply chain to be encouraged, first to come here to Europe, and second that local suppliers transition and move into these industries where they're doing something similar, but they want to enter the value chain. We will also see such businesses entering our value chains. So we will see a completely different picture already in 5 years, but in 10 years it will be already quite visible. But the time to act is actually now, and this year is quite critical as well as next, because European investment climate and in general needs to believe that Europe can still make batteries. Otherwise, we have lost the game. And if we now sort of stop, it's pretty much then never going to start again. And with the difference that 5 years ago we were kind of deploying capital in everything which had any potential to make batteries. Now we need to be more selective. We need to give smaller increments of capital and let the companies develop products and develop processes. So after a while, they can prove their potential and then they can scale. But if they miss any of these steps, it's very hard.
You're close to break ground on your first gigafactory in Subotica, Serbia. What are your development plans as regards this facility and what comes next?
So the first phase of our scale-up production plant is going to be in Subotica. It's a 1 gigawatt-hour facility where we're going to basically mass produce the cells we are already producing on our pilot line, which is going really well, and our customers are quite happy with the first results. And that will be executed from next year. So early next year in Q1, we're going to start construction, and it's going to last about 12 months. And after that, we're going to have about 6 months ramp up. So expect mid of 27, we're going to have first massively produced cells coming from this line. After that, we have a larger project, which is 8 to 10 gigawatt hours, depending on the cell size, and that will be deployed from 27 onwards, so most likely in 28 and 29. And for that project, we are looking into other countries as well. So of course we have Serbia as our home base, but we're also looking into Poland, Spain, Hungary, and similar countries, where we're also basically exploring the land, the subsidies, the people skills, and also our customer proximity. And that will be announced more towards the end of next year. But for now, we are really laser focused on this project of 1 gigawatt-hour and execution of that one, because we need to prove that that one will give sufficient yields and sufficient efficiencies for our customers and investors to be satisfied to move on to the next phase.
How much are you planning to invest in this first phase in Subotica, and what's in the plans for the next one?
So Subotica factory is a bit less than 100 million euros as a total project, and the next one will be around 700 million euros for phase 2.
Nemanja, there is always this perception that Europe is a more difficult place to do business, do innovation, and grow than the United States. Would you agree with this characterization?
It's definitely more difficult. So that's not even in question, because in the US you have tariffs now, or before you had subsidies for each kilowatt hour. So it was much easier to develop a plant, and the availability of capital, especially high return, medium risk capital, was much more available and is still much more available. In Europe, we tend to play at the low risk game, and battery is a high technology and it has some risk. It's not construction industry or hotel industry or similar. It's a complicated high tech industry, and that requires a lot of capital and requires some risk taking and some protectionism until we are ramping up. But I would say the most important is to have European mindset, more open towards high risk, high return, critical projects for European strategic sovereignty and independence.
You mentioned a couple of other countries earlier. What are the key determinants for your site selection decision making? What are you looking at?
Well, there's a lot of components, but if you break them down into big groups, it's definitely, of course, local acceptance and subsidy package. That's an obvious one. But apart from that, it's also availability of energy, different sorts of energy, then availability of highly skilled staff, So access to universities, access to basically larger cities is also very important, because battery making is a high complex environment where you need a very, very highly skilled staff. And if you mix all those, then you kind of have a formula where you can kind of decide. But more also, you need to visit the sites, you need to actually feel them, you need to see how they work, and so on. So it's really a mix of a lot of things, and we are studiously evaluating all of those, and we will have the announcement by the end of next year, where we'll finally select the site and start the project for the 700 million project. And that might be in Serbia, might be somewhere else. We're currently considering several countries, as I said. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what you need to know about. Pretty much, you don't have staff who know the technology, so you need to train the local staff. And we are one of the rare companies who actually planning to train local staff, and planning to open small R&D centers on every site, and so on. Most of the Asian value chain, they're just coming and ramping up production with mostly Chinese labor force, and then operators remain European, but essentially the management is still run by the Asian companies.
Fantastic. Nemanja Mikać, the CEO of Elevenis, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for watching. If you're following this on YouTube, like and subscribe, or else follow us on our website, fdiintelligence.com. Until the next time.